Well, welcome to the Ukrainian capital, where the government today actually fought off a vote of no confidence forced on them by the protesters in Independence Square behind me. More on that in a moment. But first, let's go to Bangkok in Thailand, where the embattled Prime Minister there, Yingluck Shinawatra, has been forced by protesters there to engage in talks on political reform. Not enough, they say. They still want her to resign. From there, our Asia correspondent, John Sparks.
For 3 days, anti-government protesters and the Thai police waged war in the centre of Bangkok. Today, however, the barricades came down and the two sides shook hands. Flowers were exchanged and tears were shed, and the police got out of the way. The protesters had tried to take this government complex by force. This morning, however, they simply walked in. For many, it felt like victory. The heart of government had been seized.
I think we've won. It feels like victory. I think we've 90% won it now.
But there was a problem. The protesters may have occupied the lawn outside the Prime Minister's office, but Yingluck Shinawatra was still the Prime Minister. Until a few hours ago, this area was one of the most protected areas in the country. But it's now rammed with anti-government protesters declaring a victory of sorts. It's a bit like an opening day fete, all very festive. But it's not clear to me what these guys have achieved. Protest leaders accuse the government of corruption, and they're promising far-reaching reform, but they're not prepared to wait for the next election. I caught up with one of the organisers outside the main gate. Yingluck Shinawatra is still the leader of this country. She was elected.
Normally we give them power for 4 years, but they've used it in the wrong way. They're corrupt, so the people want the power back.
Well, the people took charge this morning. The police were nowhere to be seen, and it felt unstable at times. When a maverick politician called Chewit turned up to criticise the demonstrators, many turned on him.
Chewit, what does this mean? What does this mean?
This means conflict.
He was jostled and bumped out of the grounds. The decision by the police to dismantle the barricades has come as a surprise. They'd spent days defending key government ministries, so I asked them why.
We did this so we could talk to each other and reduce tensions, but we're not going to let the protesters do whatever they like. This decision was made to avoid further confrontation.
For the country's Prime Minister, Yingluck Shinawatra, a small measure of relief is expected, with the nation now preparing for the Thai King's birthday on Thursday. She's asked people to use the time to brainstorm. But the leaders of this protest, as well as their followers, are in no mood to negotiate. We watched at the Ministry of Finance, which they've occupied for several weeks, as volunteers were trained to resist and besiege. They are organised and committed to their cause, and they seem increasingly determined. John Sparks, Channel 4 News, Bangkok.